Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Lethal Sales. We are so happy you're here, Larry, Peter, and I. Tonight's topic is what motivates salespeople. Is it gimmicky things? Is it something uh, having to do with money or gifts? Or is it something else altogether? What's the most important thing that you can do? What's your creative idea for motivating your sales force? And I'm going to start with Russell tonight.
Oh no.
You aren't ready?
No, hmm.
Defer.
Yeah, let me defer to Mike Larkin.
Ooh, I'm honored. I always go after Russell. Yeah. So what is, you know what? This is such an interesting question, and I asked not Chat GPT, but a GPT, right? I think I have it written down here. Yep, lethal sales. Um, and I asked, yeah, do contests and promotions, or promotional product rewards, uh, work when it's comes time to keeping our sales teams more productive?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked that what are the best practices, and it said contests or promotional rewards are like a jolt of caffeine for sales team productivity. It's all about that sweet mix of competition and incentives. Here's the lowdown on the best practices. First off, keep it fun and fair. Let everybody know that they can win.
Fun and fair.
Yeah, so from the oldest guy on the sales team to the rookie. Next, mix up the prizes. And I mean, it could be cash prizes one week, and it could be a time off on another week. It can be prime parking if it's snowing out for another week. Just keep it mixed up. And lastly, chat with your team, get to know them, what motivates them. They'll come up with their own ideas as well. So that's what ChatGPT, or no, sorry, I got this from uh, a guy that opened up a room on Clubhouse, Thomas Arisotano, and he developed an AI that he wanted me to break it, and it was smoking after I was done with it.
It was.
Oh, geez. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, I think a lot of it is based on the individual. Um, Guys like me, I never worried about the money. The money always came. I always wanted to be the top salesperson. I just like beating everybody every month. There's people that could absolutely care less if they're the top salesperson and they just want the money. There's so I think it's really like the same modus operandi for dealing with customers is dealing with your salespeople, is finding out what it is that turns them on and try to find a way to give it to them. Because I think everybody's motivated a little bit differently. Now, as far as the contests, I love them. I told you guys a while back that when we did contests, we would break them down so it would be sales, service, parts, body shop, and people would be brought out of each department and put on a team, which pulled the front and the back and fixed and variable together. And that was fun because people that didn't know or didn't like each other, had no proximity, were now tied to a common cause. So that's good. But I think it's just finding out what motivates people, get into their heads, asking. A lot of times when you ask a question to a group, it's almost a waste of time in the sense that you get 12 different answers and an argument breaks out, and you get off the point. But as far as asking a group of people what excites you the most, is it cash, is it this or that? I think that's one time when the group rule idea makes sense because it's right from the horse's mouth. You can look on somebody's face right away and tell if they're excited or not, or if they start rolling their eyes of, oh, yeah, big deal. So I think it's just like with the customer, it's listening, finding out what turns on the individual. All the things you mentioned, Mike, whether they were computer generated or not, made sense. The parking space, money. I think time off is an incredible motivator because when I got in the business, when Russell got in the business, when Peter got in, you wanted to work. You were concerned with what kind of money you could make. It was less touchy feely, but I think life balance is right up there now with money, and maybe in some instances above that. So
Yep.
I think listening to your people, asking them what they want, trying to give it to them, and certainly the fun and fair thing, man. I should put that on my business card.
Yeah.
All those months that you won, Larry, were you ever looking over your shoulder and saying who's coming in second, or just focus on, hey, I'm going to win anyway?
I took my then girlfriend, I don't think we were married yet, to Aruba. And the GM said, well, you think you're going to win this month? I mean, you're up this many cars, but because my wife had booked it. She, not being a car person, booked the last week of the month. And I said, the only guy that can catch me is the guy getting on the plane. So I wasn't really worried about it. I think I think you might all agree. It's like golf. You compete with yourself. You push yourself. Okay. Russell Hill has been celebrating like a maniac lately because he's doing momentous things with his company. I honestly don't think, knowing Russell the way I've learned to know him, that he doesn't lay awake and not worrying about what his competitors are doing. He thinks how good it feels to do more than he did last month, last quarter, and last year.
Right.
And I think you'll find the top guys are more worried about what they can do than measuring themselves up against what everybody else does. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And but
Absolutely.
you guys are absolutely right. Listen to what they want. You guys came up with creative ideas every month. They love the steak and bean contest, where we would call a competing dealer and put on a contest on who won for the month on new car sales. And we'd pick a restaurant, and the top guys we would have steak, and who lost it would have beans.
Yeah, but Boyd, you couldn't do that if I was on your floor, because I'd be like conquering cows and they'd all be flatulent because nobody'd have any, it'd be all beans all the time. That's how much I looked over my damn shoulder, Mike Larkin. Go ahead, Boyd. I'm sorry. And by the way, I didn't interrupt you. That was Peter. He's a ventriloquist, and I'm just a dummy. And everybody in this panel will agree with that. Go ahead.
I'd never call you a dummy, Larry.
But our dealership always won, and there was, and like you guys said, it was fair because our whole sales team had steak and the other guys had beans. We just had fun.
So
yeah, I don't think we have enough fun these days. I think a lot of old heads like wistfully say, "Man, it was more fun back in the day." We weren't as regulated. We just didn't have many obstacles. So many strange things. I mean, if I would have sat with Jeff Scherer 30 years ago, and he said, Larry, you're well respected in the industry. What do you think is going to happen? I'd said, well, you won't have Pontiac, you won't have Oldsmobile. Franchises will get terminated just because the manufacturers feel. You'd say, nah, that's impossible. You got franchise laws, blah, blah, blah. So it seems like the noose is tightened on a lot of people. It just doesn't seem to be as much fun as it once did. Now, I'm still having fun. The guys on this program, I guess you join up every week because we're all having fun. But I think the business as a whole is a tiny bit less fun. So if you can bring fun to it, Boyd, man, what a hero you are, right?
Oh, yes, for sure. I used to send the whole dealership on a deep sea fishing trip on a Saturday.
Now, it's funny wait a minute. It's funny you mentioned that. And I didn't want to say it because I'm proud, but Russell and Jeff are so fond of me that they put their money together and booked me a trip to Australia, but there's some kind of mistake because I don't see any return ticket. I'm sure that was an oversight.
I think they're trying to tell you something, Larry.
Actually, Larry, it's Papua New Guinea that you're going to.
There you go. Yeah, I'll get eaten like one of Joe Biden's imaginary relatives. I get it. I knew there was a purpose to it.
Oh, Lord.
So
Boyd, we're
I
glad
want to
you
jump in on
us.
this.
Yeah.
And the reason why I want to jump in on it, because as we've all said, there's things that drive each person on the team, whether it's recognition, whether it's pay, whether it's this, whether it's that. regardless of what it is, we have to be authentic on how we're going to drive that to our teams.
Authentic.
And that means we recognize their worth, and we come back to them and we celebrate that. Now, in the last couple of weeks, I've pointed out a dealer group in Canada that is, which let's rephrase this. I celebrated the dealer principal for years because he owned 10 dealerships, and every month, every single month, he'd go to each one of those dealerships and cook a meal for his entire teams. Now you're talking dealer principal at 10 or an owner at 10 dealerships. That's quite surprising for me at that level. But and then he took his teams, his GMs, to St. Andrews, Scotland to golf. Significant trip. Well, in the last 2 weeks, I've seen a number of videos from his dealership of his son driving around and saying, I'm going to give out the sales bonuses. And he gave out $1,000 cash to one of the team members, the GSM of one of his dealerships, for hitting his volume incentive. His volume was 80 units. Gave him $1,000 cash. That's $1,250 a unit for hitting his target. That to me was ridiculous. But what really got my goat was he gave a salesman who did back-to-back 30-car months. His employee of the month, and his employee of the month was a $100 Walmart card.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's $3.33 a unit bonus. Geez, Mr. Customer, at 96 months on your payment, would you pay an extra 12 cents a month? Because that would increase my income bigger than the Walmart gift card that I got.
I
12
believe
cents.
I believe the quote you're looking for is the great Winston Churchill, who said, "Intelligence often skips a generation."
Oh, so having said that, we wonder why the turnover is so high in automobiles. We wonder why that we have people that will manipulate pay plans. We wonder why we have a 40% trust rating. We wonder why all these negatives come to the business. It's ourselves. It's what we do. It's how we look at things. It's how we engage in things, how we train people, how we onboard people, how we do everything. And I'm not saying this to kick everybody in the teeth that owns the dealership or runs a dealership or is even working in a dealership. Hell, it happens with vendors. You see vendors go through people like crazy. You see the green pucks everywhere on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that all comes down to who we are as leaders. And Mike says it best. The fish stinks from the head down.
That's the Canadian version.
Yeah. And it is so true that we as leaders have to be cognizant of everything, and we have to recognize what's going on. Whether we're working for an OEM, a vendor, a dealer, or just being a customer. And Jeff, you've been a customer twice in the last 3 months. You see it as a customer. You see what's going on. And you sit back and you shake your head and go, how do they not recognize what's going on? And how are you not motivating your sales team to understand what's going on? I just heard of a BMW, and I'll tell this story quickly. Jeff Polo, good friend of the show. Larry and Russell and a lot of us have been on the Auto Hub show when Jeff was sharing it with Ian Nethercott. Jeff had a friend come to him and ask him specifically for a sporty sport utility. And he said, well, if you want that, there's only two choices. There's BMW and there's Porsche. So he said, can you make an appointment for me? Jeff went out and made an appointment for him to go to two dealerships. He went to the BMW dealership and the guy just blew him off. Just said, no, we don't have it. We don't have it. Yeah, no, sorry. You can order one. Yep, that's fine. No. And basically blew him off. The guy walked away. Guy went to the Porsche dealership. Guy said, yeah, let's drive the car. Drove him around a 2-block radius. 2 streets, turn, 2 streets, turn, 2 streets, turn, 2 streets, turn, came back. That was his test drive. Took his trade-in and took his trade-in for an hour and came back and offered him half of what Jeff had offered him as a used car dealer. Then the guy said, this is just disappointed him. We're doing it to himself. Not one of those dealerships called him back. Not one. So how do you motivate your salespeople when you're not training them to do the right job in the first place?
Right.
I want to jump in if I could.
Go right ahead, Jeff.
I think there's two pieces to the ideal motivation picture. And we've mentioned both of them. We've got individuals and what drives them and what's important to them. And then we also have team. If you're going to have a sales contest, well, you know what? Who's going to win? It's the guy that's been doing 30 cars a month for the last 3 years. And the next guy down that's doing 15 might do 16, 17, but the average guy doing 12, that's not going to motivate him because everybody knows who's going to win. But if there's a team component where, guys, if we reach this, we're going to do this, go on the fishing trip, right? Do whatever. But then also the individual piece, because, an extra $500, and forget about your story. I'm not referring to that, Peter, for now, but, money may motivate Mike, but I may want, 4 days off next week when my kid's graduating or whatever. There's different motivations. So how do we blend those two things to where we can still all pull on the same oar as a team, but I'm also pulling a little bit harder because I know I'm working for something I can get. It's achievable for me.
Exactly. So going back to this dealership that offered the $100, they did a 3-minute social media video and plastered it everywhere that they gave away a $100 gift card. Is that going to draw people to your dealership for 2 reasons? One, is it going to draw people to your dealership to come work for you? Not a chance.
No.
And second, is it actually going to draw customers to come deal with you when they know you're that tone deaf to your employees? No.
No.
So again, we have to figure out ways and releasing that information out there. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine that turned around and said, where is your whys? If you don't know your employees' whys, you can't motivate them in any way, shape, or form. So one guy who might be happy with a $100 gift certificate because he can go and buy a couple sleeves of golf balls or whatever he wants to buy, where the other guy would say, just give me another day off so I can spend it with my family. Give me tickets to the movie theater so I can take my wife and kids because it's $150 to go to the movies these days. Give me something like that that's tangible that I can remember. And Maya Angelou said, it's not what you said or did, it's how you make people feel. That's how you're remembered. If you can make your employees feel really, really recognized, and I mean recognized, that their effort means something to you, that you are going to jump in the trenches with them, that you're going to do everything you possibly can to get them to that level that you're asking them to be at. That's where you're building your team, and that's where you're going to retain your team because they're
Hey,
going to
Peter.
see.
Peter, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Go
you
ahead.
jogged something important here, which is a lot of times what motivates people costs you nothing. A kind word, put your arm around somebody, going, man, I am so proud of you. I tell managers all the time, how often do you pull your guys in one-on-one and just tell them, man, you're doing great? Oh, I don't think so. I know what you're capable of. Just a kind word. Look, I think there's nobody on this broadcast that's 18 years old. Okay. Rhonda looks like she's 18, but she's not. Okay. We all know that everybody's going through something, some aggravating thing, some tragic thing, something that's got them borderline depressed or beaten down. A kind word can mean everything. And yet, I think the vets in this business have all seen the other end of it. Peter loves to quote the bridge over the River Kwai, beatings will continue till morale approaches. Jeff, I used to go in these meetings on Saturday. I was the top salesman. I'm not bragging. I had the best CSI, the most gross, and the most units. Okay. I had to sit in a meeting while they beat people up about paperwork. Peter's been with me. Rhonda's my right-hand person. I don't make mistakes on paperwork. I ask everybody twice. And yet I got beat up for bad paperwork because I was in a room with a bunch of idiots. If they had pulled each person aside separately, they would have gotten a better effect and they wouldn't have turned off the guy that was the top sales guy. A kind word costs you nothing. Now, if you happen to throw a kind word in and tie in a contest that lifts all the boats, the old rising tide thing, it's great. Hey, you know what? Just for fun, Peter, no, I don't know anybody that doesn't like Fred, and he gets along with everybody, and he has to deal with Wendy, who has to deal with a lot of lunatics. Fred, what are your thoughts, man, as far as motivation? You've worked jobs that were hard labor. You've hung and heard all the crazy stuff that Wendy goes through. What do you think, Fred?
You ran away.
He spontaneously combusted. Oh my God, I think I have to adjust my pitch. This could get scary. Hey, Jeff Scherer, you have to tell Wendy. You're farther away. I might be in trouble if I tell him.
There he is.
Yeah, I'm trying. I don't have my video.
Well, we can hear you.
That's all right.
Okay, great.
You never look better, Fred. Keep going.
Okay, here's supposed to come. Who knows? I've been trying to get Wendy on here. She's upstairs working, whatever. Let me see my video.
Now, wait a minute. Wendy's always working. Okay. I don't know I thought I had a hard work ethic till I met Peter. Every time I talk to Russell, he's on 12 hours of shows and then working his butt off. Is it possible that if we do motivate people and make them understand how much we appreciate their work ethic, that they'll want to continue and expand their work ethic?
Yes.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, if you in leadership show how things are expected and you do them yourself, people will not sit back and say, well, he's asking or she's asking us to do this, and they won't get off their butt. Like Jason basically said that this morning in this morning's call, that there's so many people that are chairborne versus airborne, and that's the difference in this industry right now. Now, I just want to add something that I saw Lloyd Steves put out a post the other day, and it was what great leaders say. And I took it, but I inverted the message, and it was something that I couldn't believe when I inverted the message, how impactful it became. What great leaders say, what can I do to support you? Thank you for your hard work. You are making a difference. We're in this together. Take the lead on this. I'm proud of you. How can I help? I believe in you. You got this. I trust you. And when you have that in that order, it goes right down to the last point, the 10th point, but that 10th point isn't said, it's implied. And when you actually have that, then you have a true leader and a true motivator, because they're not asking things. They're not even telling things. They're leading you to things and leading you to greatness. And that's where the motivation comes in.
I've always said the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack.
Absolutely. Without a shadow of doubt. You cannot tell or force a team to move. It's like pushing rope uphill. You have to pull them up with you. You're leading them over the crest. So you grab onto the rope and follow me over.
And
get them to, I think, Peter, to your point, boy, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm listening. Go ahead.
No, my thought is this, like, and I recently had this happen yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. I am a leader in my store being a sales manager, but I also have a leader. I have my GM who is leading me. And when my GM comes and asks, what can I do for you? And you're honest, you're transparent, and you receive back an empathetic human being that understands where you're coming from, listens to what you're saying, and then the very next morning takes immediate action to impose certain changes to make my life easier at the dealership. That in turn makes me want to work even harder for that person. And that's the same thing that we're talking about here. To get my team on board and to get my team motivated, I've got to do the exact same thing. I've got to be that person that is their sounding board, their person that, hey, I need help. What can come walk with me, talk with me, help me through this problem. I'm not in the right headspace, whatever it would be. I need you to go gas up this car. Can you go buff this thing out? Whatever it would be, showing my guys that, in a one-on-one with my GM, he told me, he's like, he recently sat down with all of the sales team and he goes, every single one of them said you would run through a brick wall for them. And I was like, well, I guess I'm doing the right thing. And that's the leader that I want to have. Is I want to have the person that when I come to the desk or I come to, my manager's desk and I come with a problem, that the actionable solution is implemented expeditiously to help my world. Mm-hmm. And that is the best thing for me. And that's what I lead on to my team. When they come and they ask me for something, I've got to give it to them. My job is to make their life easier. My job is not to make their life more difficult. I'm supposed to help them. I'm supposed to educate them. In being in the business for 20 plus years, if you're not there to help and educate your staff, what are you doing?
Jason, you're the obvious point here, though, is remember, I worked with your guy and got him a manager. Both you and him embrace and enjoy servant management.
Yes.
Russell, I don't know if I ever told you this story. I got booked into South Carolina years ago, and I got there, and our boy Obama was president. I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm veering slightly political, but you'll understand why in a second. And there was a lot of unemployed people, and I must have had 60 or 70 people. They booked a giant hotel room. It was 4 dealerships. And when I got down there, I realized I was the only Jew. I mean, not only was everybody in the room wearing a cross, I think the dogs are wearing crosses. So I figured I'd have some fun. And my opening statement was, I believe Jesus Christ would have been the greatest used car manager of all time. Jason, the guy in the back of the room, started to have a stroke. He's like, oh my God, who did I hire? And I already paid this. I held up my hands and says, no, Jesus invented servant management. He washed the feet of the disciples. If managers would nurture salespeople would nurture their customers. It's not complicated. Right. Your dad's a wife beater. You're probably going to beat your wife. It's nature versus nurture. But when you really enjoy helping people, really helping them, life gets easy because you don't constantly feel pressured or stressed because you had to help somebody. I'm quoting Russell. Forgive me, Russell. Russell never says I had to do it. I got the opportunity to do it. Yep. I was glad I
get to do it.
Yeah. Well, isn't that a hell of a difference than us? Oh man, what are they making me do now? Hey, I think Boyd Harrison was going to say something. And Boyd, were you following up with what Jason was saying, or did you have a thought?
Yes, well, you know, you have to get people to believe in what you're doing and take part in what you want to accomplish.
To do that, Boyd, you got to let them know you believe in them.
Yes,
when you let people believe that I have your back, it makes them want to have your back.
I used to do a forecast meeting every day, and everybody would give me their forecast. And in the closing, I would ask them, what do you need from me to accomplish that? Whatever it was. Tell me what.
Hey, there's our girl, Wendy. When we're talking about how to motivate salespeople, Jason Reed just said a cattle prod, electric one. He said he tried that lovey-dovey stuff and it didn't work. That is pretty much what you said, right, Jason? Or have I taken slight liberties there?
I think you took some liberties there, Larry.
Well, I am a car salesman from Trenton, New Jersey. What do you expect? Go ahead, Wendy.
I was going to say a taser. Same difference.
But you're more, see, you think more modern than me. I was on a cattle prod. You were on a taser. This is why she's a tech person. Jason, later on, I'll show you my iPhone. It has a rotary dial.
Seriously, though, I don't know, guys. You know, I think the problem with motivation is that we expect that our teams all learn the same way and absorb the same way, and we get to them the same way. And I'll give you a little story, and I think I've brought this up on previous shows. You know, like one of the teams that I'm coaching, because BDC sales, same thing, right? So one of their challenges, and they tried outsourcing, they tried all kinds of stuff, was engagement. Once they got a hold of the leads, they're a great team. They converted them, they got them in the showroom, whatever. But the topic was videos. So a couple of them are self-starters. They're like, okay, cool, I got this teleprompter. I just look at this and away I go, and it's whatever kind of video. This girl just couldn't get it, and she was like a lone wolf on the team. She didn't feel like she was part of it yet. So anyway, I showed her there was an app. So I took her outside. I went and spent some time down there and worked with her for a day when she was alone in the office down in Tucson. And we went out to the lot, and I said, do you do videos for social and to your friends and for your families, and do you FaceTime? She's like, yeah. So I said, cool. I brought her out. I showed her the app. She did her own videos. She aced it. She's been doing it ever since. Now we got a thing going where when they make a new video, we started this thing for this dealer. We called it Cash for the dealer name. And we are giving them 5 points for every video that they create. And then we're going to let them cash them in for swag, for company swag, like shirts to wear to work and this and that and the other. Yeah, you know, so like if money or whatever else it is not appealing to them and you want to spiff them, I know you hate to have to spiff them to motivate them to do their job, but they like the competitive thing too. And I think once you figure out how you get to each person and find their motivator or what's going to make them doing it, is it going to be somebody next to them that they thought they were so much better than, kicking their butts because that person's implementing what you trained or coached and they're not? What's it going to be? Is it going to take monetization? Is it going to take old school? Pin a $20 bill up on the cubicles and say, here, first one to get an appointment or first one to get 3 appointments gets this $20 and go have lunch. I think you have to ask your people what they want. Sometimes you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to just lay down the land. But we got a lot of snowflakes out there, ladies and gents. And they're going to claim this or that or the other, and they're not going to do it. So just talk to them and find out what they think they would work in your culture. I mean, what about that for an idea?
I mean, I'll tell you, Wendy,
it's a brilliant idea. Hey, Jason, let me just throw something at Wendy, because she, what I love what she said at the beginning. Think about people that have 3 kids. How different each kid is. One kid's so outgoing, you think, this kid's going to be an entertainer. One kid's so shy, it's painful. Came from the same mother and father. So to think that everybody's going to be motivated the same way is ridiculous. And the less you roll your eyes, and the more you realize that, does everybody agree that most managers don't have a dictionary They never look at the word to manage. To be a manager is to manage, is to make people better, is to implement things, is to find a bridge to what they're trying to accomplish. And since they're all paid on overrides, what you want to accomplish. So that was really good, Wendy. I didn't mean to interrupt you,
That's
Jason,
really
but
good.
I love what you said. Not everybody learns the same.
What I was gonna say is, like, to Wendy's point about the spits and how they're doing the cash. I think all that stuff is great. My GM recently, but for Larry, Ryan is no longer my GM. Ryan is over the Honda store. When the whole buy sell happened, I got a new GM. So I miss Ryan dearly, and he's
He was
doing
what
fantastic.
A great guy.
He is such a fantastic human being. I love him to death. But our new GM did something I had never seen before, and he's done it several times since then. And he goes and spends $100 on $5 lottery tickets, and he tapes them to the sales office window, and he goes, for every appointment you make that comes in, pull one. It costs him $100 for 20 of them.
That's better. I like that one. Could pay off.
Okay. You don't know what the payoff is going to be, but damn it, you're going to work. You're going to work to get as many appointments in as you can, because you want the most opportunity to get the $10,000 payout or whatever it is on that lottery ticket. You don't know. It's a gamble. It's fun, exciting. It's different. It's not a standard straight $100 bill or a $20 bill. You may win big, you may win nothing, you may win a free ticket. Who knows? There's the level of the unknown there, which is the catch of the gift. And I think that in itself was a different way of looking at it, in a different way of motivation than I've seen before, that gives you the same thing of what Wendy's talking about, with a much smaller investment from the manager or from the store. And at the same point, you're still getting that same production level, which is what you want. And I'll be damned if the appointments come in. And you know what's funny? The salespeople don't give a rat's butt about the lottery tickets, because their appointment comes in, and what do? Sell a freaking car.
Well, another thing to that point, I've seen a spinning wheel, like the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
And you could put different gifts on them, or you could tape your lottery tickets to there with a little, whatever. And also goodie bags we do in the BDC. Throw a bunch of $10 gift certificates in there, Amazon, gas station, Starbucks, whatever. And the idea that they don't know, but they get to reach in and they get to pick out a gift. And lottery tickets, I would think that would appeal to the salespeople. Maybe gas cards, because they got to pay for their gas and their demos, or I don't know.
I think Wendy,
but you got to do gamification. Gamification is the word.
And not only that, for variety, because no matter what you do, it can get stale. If you're keeping people motivated by having different things, listen, if you're a professional sports coach, you're basically hired to be fired. Doesn't matter how good you are, right? We're seeing the end of coaches that coach a team for 20, 30 years. It's because and where people have short-term attention spans, after a couple of years, that great message you had, nobody's hearing it anymore. So I think doing different things, making it different, making it interesting. I love what Wendy said. I love what Jason's GM did. That's great. Is there anything we haven't thought of? Anybody have any thoughts that we haven't thought of?
Boyd's been trying to speak.
Yeah, my guys used to love for me to do a sales meeting, because I would take money under their seats. And you just be like you said, somebody might not have lunch money for that day or something.
Do you still do that, Boyd? Because me and my wife would love to invite you over. We got chairs and couches all over the place. Ron, this could be good. This might be better than the swear jar.
Yeah, but it was creative, and they, just the money under the seats. Anything to make, to make their day, make somebody's day.
I like it.
So one of the things that I'd like to just add here, and from what I've listened to, a a friend of mine always said to me, a customer only becomes a client once they're heard. So when we hear a customer, we hear what they're actually saying, we can understand how to solve and bring a solution to their transportation needs. It's the exact same thing in the showroom with our teams and or fixed ops or parts guys or whoever. When we actually hear them, we can bring something to them that will actually activate them to be motivated. And it's when we actually hear our teams. So often we go off our gut and what we think and what we feel, and we're not listening. So it's about time that we open up and start listening to everybody.
Peter,
Well,
God gave you 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. You got to see it, you got to hear it before you speak it. That's the only way you're going to really be a true leader in this business or in this world or be in a relationship, period, is you've got to be able to hear and listen before you speak.
And to that, Jason, I will go one step further. Let's look at the anatomy of the body. Your eyes are in front, your ears are at the side, your arms are at the side, your feet face forward. We move forward because that's the direction we're meant to go. We face forward because we want to see what's in front of us, not what's behind us. The ears are at the side of the head because we want to hear everything around us, not just what's directly said to us. Our arms are at the side so we can reach out and touch things, bring things forward, push things back. And our mouth is the only thing that we have. We have one of, so use it proportionally to everything else.
Well, you guys mentioned fairness, and a friend of mine just got hired by CarMax. The whole team gets $1,000 a week. At the end of the month, they take whatever money's left, and they split it equally by everybody, and everybody works as a team. And I thought that was interesting.
Pooled commission.
Pardon me?
Pooled commission.
Yes, they get $1,000 a week plus 30% of the bottom line at the end of the month.
And if you work as a team, you lift everybody as a team.
You lift everybody as a team. Everybody gets paid the same, and they help each other. Managers are not on their backs, and they work harder.
Yes, and I've seen that. I've seen that in a number of different scenarios. It's very, very difficult to enforce if it hasn't been done from the get-go. Because you'll have mass exodus and things like that from stores that, and people don't understand that it's a proportionate thing. And they say, well, if I do 15 cars and that person does 5, well, that person that does 5 won't be there. And you self-police the sales floor.
Correct.
Having said that, is there any other motivators that you can think of that would bring a benefit to a sales floor, i.e., and this is something, and I'm going to put this one out here. Car dealership guy put out a post the other day, and I don't normally accept anything he says. And he put out 3 things: demo, days off, and a draw as motivators for salespeople. And my response to that are the 3 most important things that you can offer your team in the car business. And if you can't motivate them with that, then you are in a positioning that you're not being a leader. Now, in saying that, I said, demo, you're in the car business. You should be supporting the brand that you work for and be celebrating it to everybody you know. You shouldn't be charged for it. It should be an automatic. Draw, you should be given an amount of money that allows you to live, so you live stress-free. Not enough that you can sit back on your laurels, but enough money that you can survive. days off, the idea of working bell to bell 6 days a week, 7 days a week, as a lot of dealerships used to be, is dinosaur, is the dinosaur of this industry. If we go and in every dealership I've been at, I pushed people down to a 4-day work week and had great success with that in uplifting the team's performance. Those three things I strongly agreed with, absolutely. And funny enough, CDG agreed as well. He had about 85% pushback on it. What do you think about those motivators?
Well, I think you've got to have some provisions on some of them. I owned a dealership, and the liability if somebody is drunk and runs somebody over is, I mean, 10 Tom Kleins can't get you out of trouble. I think if I still own my store, I'd say, listen, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to sell you a car net. Okay. And the car payment, I'll give you the car payment every month as long as you work here. Gives them an incentive to stay. Demos are really dangerous, Peter. Everybody's concerned about imaginary liabilities like doc fees and things, or a license on the desk, but that's scary. The draw is a fabulous idea as long as you have people properly motivated and who understand that at some point that comes back. Because it could be very self-defeating to have a draw and you're rolling along and then you sell a bunch of cars. You're like, oh man, I made some money, and it all gets sucked backwards. It's kind of like why they use chips at casinos and people live off of credit cards until they realize it's 30% and they're never getting out of, they'll pay 32 years if they pay the minimum. Days off is a brilliant idea. Life balance is way more important to people than it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And I think there's no liability with that. I think having your people more relaxed and more excited and being an attack. And I think that the other two, you just have to be careful with. But well, I think we're all in agreement. A little more time off is a beautiful thing.
So in your first instance, Mercedes-Benz was one of the biggest dealer or OEMs that came into play with what you have said, because they wanted the dealers to register demos to all their teams, and it was always the variables that got the demos. No one else got demos. So Mercedes-Benz came in with an employee purchase agreement that they would automatically give credit to every single Mercedes-Benz employee, and the dealership would guarantee it. And so every single employee got to drive a car. It increased your RDRs, it increased your CPOs, it increased everything. So that,
and the liability was on the people, since you were reimbursing them, they still had to insure the car themselves.
Exactly.
Correct. And they only got that. I don't even think they don't have that any longer. I don't believe, because I don't take part in it. Otherwise I would. But you had to be a certified or was it platinum or gold star level certified with Mercedes-Benz to qualify for that back in the day. And they paid up to an amount of like $700 or whatever it was for the car payment to the dealership, and then the dealership would reimburse you back for it. So it was a great thing until you decided to quit or got fired. Then you were still responsible for the car payment, but without the backing of the dealership, it created people wanting to stay at the store. It stopped store hopping. It stopped a lot of those things that were very common back in the day of when I started 20 years ago, of seeing people hop from store to store to store to store. And that was a great benefit. Now, for me now, like what Larry said, I used to have a demo. Before the big company came and bought us out, I was privileged enough to drive, any used car that we had, being the used car manager. That was put to an end, but instead I got a car allowance from the company, which is a benefit, but it takes the liability, as Larry said, off, because I've worked for a dealership that had demos when I started, and they stopped it when one of the salespeople went home and got polished off one night at a restaurant and drove home and not only got a Dewey, but ended up, wrecking the car against somebody else. The liability came back to the dealership because they entrusted that person with the car. And who owned the car at that point? The dealership did. It was not the salesperson. It was not an individual. It was the company. So it fell back onto the company. It fell back onto the company's insurance, so on and so forth. They ended up getting sued, settled out of court, so on and so forth. But still, that costs you a lot more than just giving somebody a demo. But the payment way of paying that off is a great thing. And Larry, you're right. You've got to understand what the draw is. I've understood what the draw was since I started because I've always had a draw, whether it be, $2,000 a month or what I have now. I still have a draw, but I know I have to pay it back at the end of the month. But I'm guaranteed a certain amount of money for a period of time. If I don't produce anything, I still have a level of income that I could hopefully feed my family, at least keep the lights on.
Yeah,
we're not going to Ruth's Chris or anything like that on it. But I can have my kids fed. I can have gas in the car to get to work. I can keep the lights on and stuff like that. It's a livable wage, but still I owe that money back when I produce the next month or the next sale that I get. I know it's essentially a credit card with no interest. But I got to work for it. I've got to work my butt off to go back and pay it off. But the new people that are coming into this industry that have never sold before don't get that. They don't understand the concept of what that is. And I think part of the onboarding process is where there needs to be that education, because the first check that they get where they sold 5 or 6 cars and half of that goes back to paying the drawback, they don't understand. Well, I sold 5 cars. How could I not make any money? Well, you did, but you had to pay it back because that's a loan. It's literally a loan on a weekly or bi-weekly, monthly basis that you have to pay back with no interest. But
Jason, it's part of the onboarding. It's communication. It's letting people know if you do this, you'll get that. If you get that, you do this. It's really we're usually what most dealerships need? They need mirrors. They need to look in the mirrors and see who they are and what their behavior provides and what the net results are, because it's crazy. Everybody's tuned into being sensitive, and I've never seen a more unaware planet than the one I'm currently living in.
Jeff's trying to post something. Instead of steak knives, yes. Yeah,
Are those Ginsu knives?
No, they're the second place steak knives.
Second place finisher.
Jeff didn't get the Eldorado.
I must apologize to everybody. You can probably tell that it's like Russell's just not planes, trains, automobiles, trams. I mean, I've been up since like 3 o'clock this morning, and it has just caught up with me. So I deeply apologize for not being more involved.
Russell, we have absolute empathy for what you've been through today. We understand what it's like. We've all done it, and we understand it. So you have our great gratitude for being here. So thank you.
Well, on that note, if nobody else has anything else, we appreciate you being here. Russell, you get some rest. We love you. And
thank you, man. Thank you.
We got some really
one
cool
last thing, guys, before we sign up. I have a couple special guests tomorrow night for the Automotive Innovators and Disruptors series. I have the one and only Jason Reed. He is going to
Who's Jason Reed?
Nobody.
Some guy from some island. I don't know.
He's the guy with the electric cattle prod and no demo. We got that.
Yeah, he's going to teach us about retention, and then later on, after she lands her plane, I think she's going to Denver to visit Jeff Scherer. No, she's not going to see Jeff, but Kelly Reeves of Aries Corporation, who has been a friend of the show and an all-around great human, is going to be on the show joining Jason, and we're going to talk about how to retain customers. So really excited for it. And Russell will be awake for at least the first part of the show tomorrow.
No, I will be, man. I'll tell you what. I'm going to set the stage for this too. Talked a little bit about on the human side of AI, but the last day and a half with Jonathan Dawson on the first, this is a whole new, well, one revenue stream for him. But this APA thing, the first ever, I'm going to tell you what, next year, you don't want to miss it. You just don't want to miss it. The guy is a stud. And listen, on psychology, and I'm thinking that Larry could probably do the same thing.
Thank you, sir.
I will say Larry can do the same thing because I've been in Larry's training. So
I've seen bits and pieces. I mean, you know what? As lethargic as I am right now, I have no doubt at being in front of Larry, I'd be pumped up, excited, and motivated. Absolutely.
Thank you for the kind words.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
You guys, is that what the answer was supposed to be? How do we motivate the sales team? Larry Feldman, career changer.
Yay! That's it.
Just
Works for me.
Get Larry in front of them. Yes, absolutely. On that note, we will see you tomorrow night. Thank you for joining us.
Thank every one of you.
Thank you, everyone.
More than you know.
Appreciate
Nice
it.
Ciao for now, guys.
Take care.
Have a good week,
Take care,
guys.
bye.